Code please.
Welcome to Code Please. In this channel, I try to teach you a little bit about computer programming using the Elixir language. If you find this content useful, please consider subscribing and sharing with your friends. Now let's get into today's video.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Honest Chat tutorial. In the last one, we implemented rooms and the ability to enter a room and see the header where we can display the room name and the room description. And on this episode, what we're going to implement is the ability to join a new room, especially a room created by someone else. So what we are going to try to achieve by the end of this episode is clicking a room and seeing an invite code here that we can click and copy to the clipboard. And then we can start a new session on the browser with a new account. And we can just paste this invite link or invite code for this room that we just copied to the clipboard, and then someone could just press enter and they would automatically join a room that was created by another user. We will also implement some tweaks on the UI, namely when we select a room, we should be able to see the background of that room on the sidebar with a different color. And also this episode will give you some insight on how to push custom JavaScript events back to the browser from the server. So let's get started. So this is the status where we left it on the last episode. One thing I really don't like is when you get links that don't show the hand cursor on the mouse. Thankfully, that's an easy fix. This is the case here where we click the first room, but this is doesn't seem like a link. Pretty bad user experience. So let's change that. We just need to go to assets and CSS, and we'll create a new CSS class here for any type of link where we're going to change the cursor to pointer, and that should change the hand. And then we need to go to sidebar, and then we need to say that this A here is actually a class link. And if we do this and we refresh, then we should get a proper hand here on the cursor. Another thing I want to do is whenever I select a room, I want to see the background colored so we can know which room is actually selected. I know we know from this header here, but it would be nice to see some kind of visual indication on the sidebar of the room that we have selected. So in order to do that, we have to have the concept of the current room ID also being passed into the sidebar. And I think currently it's only passed into the messages right here and the room ID. But if we go into our index view, we are passing the current room ID here. We can also pass that into the sidebar. So let's do that. Current room ID equals, then we can pass current room ID. And that means we need to go into our sidebar and actually accept that on the update. And then we can set that up here as well. I'm also going to change this to be 1/4 of the size here, just because I think it looks a bit better, especially if the email is a bit longer like mine. Well, it's not actually that big. Maybe we should even make this longer, but we can tweak it later. At least for now, it's not clipping out my email anymore, which it's a good thing. And then let's see, we need to do some changes here. Namely, here on the room, I want to distinguish between a room that is selected and a room that is not selected. So what I'm going to do here is actually create a div on this one, and I'm going to set a class depending on whether the room is selected or not. So let's do if integer.toString room.id equals current room ID. So if it's the selected room, let's do bg blue 800, else let's just not put any class there. Then I'm just gonna move this in and get rid of this. That should be it in principle. So if I refresh this and I click the room, there you go. Now we have the selected room with a proper different background than the others. Okay, so now we can start working on copying our invite link to the clipboard. So first thing I want to do is actually show the invite link for this, or the invite code for this room here. And that's pretty easy. I just need to go into messages, and on the part where we have the description, I'm actually going to augment this a little bit here. I'm going to keep this like so, but I'm going to change this text gray to 600. Yeah, and then I'm going to add a new div. I'm just going to copy paste from my original project here. I want to add a new one here, and I'm just going to display the invite codes in line. And if we refresh, yes, I got my invite codes. It is a link for some reason. Oh, it is a link because I copied the link class here. It's not a link yet, but it will be. Actually, you know what? I don't need it to be a link. I need the icon to be a link. So let's work on adding those icons. The Tailwind website actually provides a set of icons called hero icons, and these are basically just SVGs that you can copy directly to your HTML. So I'm just going to copy paste a bunch of code here. Don't be scared. So I should put this under the invite code here. So what this is going to do is first, it's going to show one icon, which is this SVG with a path. That will be the button where you click to copy the invite code or the invite link to the clipboard. And then this if checks if the invite link has been copied. And if it has been copied, it just shows copied and like a check mark. So it's a nice UI effect that you can see in a lot of other websites as well. Yeah, and this one definitely needs to be a link, the copy one. And we need to do some wiring here because I think this now will provide an error. Yes, this will crash the live view because we are missing some things here. Namely, this invite link copied needs to exist beforehand. So we need to set it on the update. I'm just going to copy paste this into here. I'm just going to set it to, I have an extra one here, to false initially. And then I also want to do one change here, which is, it's just a cosmetic change, but I don't like the fact that this has no padding here. Looks just horrible. So what I'm going to do here is just add some padding to this div, like 4 maybe. Yeah, then that looks a bit better. When I click the first room, we can see that I already have the invite here and I have this icon that I can click to copy the link to. But this will do nothing. This will basically just crash our live view. This will crash our live view because we haven't implemented the event, the handling event here. So let's do that next. We need to, since we are triggering this event to myself, so to the messages component and not to the parent live view, we need to add our handle event function here. Our handle event function is going to be pretty simple. So I am going to copy paste because I don't want to waste a lot of time writing code, but it needs to match obviously the phx click event here. And then we're setting a code variable, which is the room invite code, to be passed into here. And then what we're doing here is getting the base URL for our website. Since we are running locally, it's going to be localhost 4000. And then we are suffixing that with the live path to a new live view that we're going to create. And this live view is going to be responsible for taking a room invite code and seeing which is the current user that is logged in and assigning that user into a room. And after that is done, we are going to set the invite link copied to true. So we show the check mark and the copied text. And we are going to push a costume event to JavaScript, which will actually copy the link to the clipboard of the user. And that's what this push event function does. Sends a costume event with this information, the link that we just built. But this is not going to work just yet because we are still missing the join room view that we need to build. And also we are missing the capture of this JavaScript event on the app.js file. So let's start with the join room view. It's just going to be a new live view here, join room view.ex. And then again, I'm just going to copy paste the code and explain what this does. It's a simple live view. It doesn't render anything really. The only thing it's responsible to do is taking an invite code that is handled that is sent as a parameter as part of the URL. It also has the current user on the socket assigns already because the live session auth live view already does that on mount. It puts the current user for all the live views in our system. So we just need to go get our room by invite code in this case, and we just ask the rooms to join this user on this room. And then if all goes okay, we just put a flash message, which is the blue message that you saw in the beginning of the video, and we redirect to the slash, so to the base URL. So this view doesn't really render anything. It's just responsible for taking a user, taking an invite code, and assigning a user to a room. But in order to do that, we also need to do another thing, which is we need to make sure that we can have multiple users on the same room. And if you recall from the last episode when we created rooms, you might have noticed that the only thing I did was define the creator of a room. So only one person is in one room as far as our database is concerned. We cannot add multiple users to a room. So what we need to do here is have another table that actually controls which users belong to a room independently of who created the room. So it is perfectly possible that a user creates a room and then leaves that room, but he's still the creator of that room, even though he's not in the room anymore. So let's create a migration for that. I'm gonna stop our server and do mix ecto.gen.migration, create room members. And if we do this and we go to our code, what we need to do here is basically create a new table. And again, I'm going to copy paste this for simplicity. We're creating a table called room members that only has the user ID and the room ID. Basically tells this table, it just says this user belongs to this room. That's it. And we create a unique index to make sure that we cannot add the same user to the same room more than once. So now we can just do mix ecto.migrate. And after this is done, we can actually start our server again, and we need to go back to the room schema so we can do some changes here. Namely, we want to alias the user schema because we want to add a many-to-many relationship on this room. And actually we can get rid of this because we already aliased the user. So what we're saying here is that rooms, each room has a members association of type user. So members, anything inside this list of members is going to be a user. And we tell it to join, to make this relationship through this table that we have in the database. And if we do this like this, we don't even need to create a schema for the room members table. We can just use rooms and users and be done with that. So another thing we should actually also do, which will simplify, is going into our accounts user schema. And in this one, we're going to do exactly the same thing, but with the room. So we create a many-to-many relationship here saying that the user has many rooms and it's going to join through room members. We're telling it that the user is in some rooms, basically. Other things we need to do include creating this function and this function. So the get room by and the join on the room. Let's go into our rooms context and let's see. We need to add an import here because I'm going to need some functions from change set. So ecto.change set, I'm going to import that. And then I also need to alias accounts and user. So I'm just going to put that in here in proper alphabetical order as one should. Let's see, get user rooms. I think I need to change this because now I want to preload the rooms on the user. So what I'm going to do is set the user, preload the rooms on that, and getting the rooms from that user. It's simple enough. And now we need to implement the get room by function, which is going to just call get by room with the options. So we can do get room by invite code, for instance, that you could see here. And we also need to implement this rooms.join. And the rooms.join is going to, first off, preload the members on the room that is passed in. So we know the existing status of which members belong to a room. And then we update that members association on the room with the extra user that we are trying to add. And this is just the short syntax for appending something to a list in Elixir. So we take the room.members, we appended the user, and we update that room. And this will trigger an update on the room members table for free. So that's why we don't need the schema for a room member. Finally, another thing I want to do is on this create room, we are creating this room with the user ID of the creator, right? But we also want to add the user that creates this room to the room members table. So that way we just need one way of looking up which users exist for a particular room. We just go into the room members table. So let's change this function a little bit and just do create room with attributes, and we get the user from those attributes because user ID is mandatory to create a room. And then we do put association members user. We create a room with only that user inside its members. And now we just need a couple more things. So first we need to do the code that actually copies the invite code link to the clipboard, because that's important, right? We want to be able to share that link with our friends so our friends can join our rooms. And the way to do that, we go into app.js and we can go into here and add another window event listener. And this is going to listen to our custom event that we created, the copy invite code link. And it's just going to call navigate to clipboard write text. And this is what goes inside the event. It's the syntax that they use. It has a detail object inside of the event. And inside this detail is whatever you sent back from the custom event. So if you remember correctly, we send back a map with link. So it translates into a JavaScript object with link inside. That's why we can do e.detail.link. If all goes well, we should be able to copy our link now. So let's try that. Oh, I forgot that we need to change the way the sidebar gets the list of rooms. So we need to go back into the sidebar here, and here the get user user rooms doesn't accept an ID anymore. It actually accepts the user. So with that done, we should see no rooms. And this is because our current user is not on the room members table. So that's crappy, right? But we can ignore that room for now, and we can just create a new room ourselves. So let's do honestchat.repo.all, honestchat.accounts.user to see all our users. We have 2 users because I created one by accident, but this is the one we're using with ID 2. So we can do honest chat.rooms.create room. This accepts a map of arguments, and we can say that the name is going to be shiny room, and the description is going to be this is chit chat, and the user ID, which is the owner, is going to be 2. And if we do this, we not only created the room, but we also added a new member to this room. And we can see this with the instructions, the SQL instructions that are ran here. We have an insert into rooms where we create the room, and then we have an insert into room members where we add our user to that particular room. And if we refresh this, we should have the shiny room. And if we click here, we crash our live view because we don't have a route for the join room view yet. So we need to go into router. We need to add this new route here that says whenever you call localhost 4000/room/join/ an invite code for a room, it's going to call this view. And the reason it's crashing when we're generating the link is because the generation of the link bases itself on the router. If the route is not defined, you cannot generate a link for that. That's why it doesn't work. But that means that now that it's set, everything should work from now on. So let's see if we can, 1, copy our invite code into, or the invite link into the clipboard, and 2, create a new user and join a room based on that link. Let's see if we can do that. And I'm going to copy this, copy it. So this means that we got it copied. And actually, if we do Control V here, we should have the proper link. And now what I'm going to do is, since this user is already on the shiny room, I'm going to log out. I'm going to register a new account, whatever @gmail.com. Don't email that email because it probably exists. And password 123. Okay. And now, if we copy paste this link here, we just joined our room based on the invite code. How cool is that? So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. The source code, as usual, is available on GitHub. And there's a new release called Part 4, where you can see all the changes made for this particular tutorial. And I will see you on the next video. Cheers.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing and liking and sharing with your friends. It really helps the channel to grow. Thank you.